Welcome back to my channel, friends. This is Sonia here from GrowingCraft. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you guys do not miss out on any of our tutorials. Now for today's tutorial, we'll be needing our wooden tray, decoupage napkin, black gesso, decoupage glue or Mod Podge, varnish of course, paint brushes and my sponge dauber. Some massive stamps, my permanent ink pads, and yes, so here we will be using some chalk paints too. Now once you know that what all supplies you will need, let's head to our tutorial. Now I have already prepped up my base with gesso, and now I'm going to use my decoupage napkin. So here I'm going to measure it from the back side. If you want, you can just use your ruler and a pencil to check the size and measure and cut it. But I think this is one of the easiest way to do your quick cutting work. So from the back side of the tray, I'm just measuring how much I need, and I'm just making a marking with my fingers, and then I'm going to cut all the extra napkin. Now we need to keep all the leftover pieces very nicely because later on we are going to use it. In this tutorial we are not wasting any of our decoupage napkin, and we will be reusing it on our borders. So here I am just doing a quick cutting with my scissor. You can use your trimmers or paper knife, whichever things you are comfortable with. Now for the decoupage napkin work, you need to make sure that you remove all the extra plies from your napkin, and once you are done with this, then we will be moving to the sticking part. But removing both the plies is really important, otherwise you will have a lot of wrinkles and bubbles in your decoupage art, and we definitely don't want that. So here, after a lot of struggle, I was able to remove my plies, and here now we will be heading towards our sticking work. Now for sticking this napkin, I will be using my decoupage glue. You can use your Mod Podge or whatever the glue you want to use, whichever you are comfortable with. Now for my base, I have already prepped up with white gesso. I have done 3 coats of gesso, and whatever the supplies I'm using, I have already listed down in the video description box. You guys can check that. So once we are done with the sticking of the base napkin, we are going to use the leftover napkin here, and I'm just cutting it to the same margin what we had marked. Now we will be decorating the borders, not all the borders, but the 2 side borders which are mostly going to be visible. Now I'll just quickly roughly cut these papers, and this is super easy. You don't have to be very particular, because anyways we have to send it sand it with our either the filer or with our sandpaper. So I'm just quickly going to fold it into half, and this is a little bigger than my tray border, but like I mentioned, we are going to cut it anyways later on to give a nice finished trim edge. So once I'm done with this, I am again going to remove both the plies of my napkin, and then we'll move on to the sticking part on the sides. Again, for the sticking part, I'll be using my decoupage glue, and like I mentioned earlier, you can use your Mod Podge also. It's absolutely fine. So once we are done with the sticking part, and here is a mistake what I did. So I had just sticked my napkin and I thought I will remove all the excessive parts from inside, but my tray had not dried out completely. So I just took my water, I thought I'll use my water brush technique and start taking out the extra pieces from the center, which was the biggest mistake. Now here, because my outside has dried out completely and I'm doing it with a filer, it was easy. But in the inner side, you will see that I started it and then I had to actually stop it because I could not, my decoupage napkin was literally getting tear off. So this is what I was talking about, the mistake what I did. So let it dry for a day, then use 2 coats of varnish and then only try to remove it. Otherwise you are going to literally ruin your napkin. Learning from my lessons, do not repeat that. Now meanwhile my napkin is drying, I thought I will do the backside coloring work. Now I usually use my black color gesso for the back. You can even use your acrylic paints, but I'm a huge fan of gesso or the chalk paints because they are absolutely matte and they do not absorb any kind of dust or anything while drying, and they are matte, so I absolutely love it. So I'm going to do good 2 coats of gesso on the back of my tray. Once this is done, I am going to clean my table really well because it's important to make your surface clean so that you do not have any marks for your future projects. So once I'm done with this, it's time, and this is what I did after 2 days. So you can see my napkin has sticked really well. Now I'm going to repeat my brush water technique, and it's not going to come out because off camera I did 2 coats of varnish on the center part of my napkin. Now just dip your brush and take it along the design wherever you want to remove it. Now because I was sure where I do not want to stick my napkins, I had not put up any varnish, so these portions are easily removable. You can just take the tip of your brush or with your fingers, you can just keep on scratching and it will come out very easily. Try this technique and I'm sure you are going to love it. If you guys have any other options on how to remove that, let me know in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to know. So once I am done with removing all the extra napkin, it's the fun part which we are going to start with. Now I am going to color my edges, and you had seen these chalk paints at the starting. I had thought of using the brown shade also, but later on I thought I'm going to mix my 2 green colors here. And here I'm using a glass plate. It is one of the best way to say no to plastics. Use your glass plates, use any of your other plates for your paint work, and trust me, you can wash it again and again and reuse it. I try not to use plastic, say no to plastic, and this is one of my easiest way of using and reusing my surface again and again. So here I have mixed 2 of my chalk paints. The shades are a little similar, but still when you mix them, it looks absolutely gorgeous, and this is very, very similar to what I wanted to have on my borders. So I'm going to have these chalk paints on the borders of my tray, and I'm going to make sure that I have generous 2 coats of these paints so that they look very even and look very, very neat. You just need to be a little careful, but because we have already done a 2 coat of varnish on the center part of my napkin, unless until my chalk paint dries out, it will be very easy to just wipe it off with a wet wipe. So just be a little careful, and you need to make sure that you have good 2 coats of chalk paints around the tray. And this looks super gorgeous and super beautiful, and I'm going to repeat this process on all the 4 sides of the inner side of the tray, and then 2 remaining sides of my outside of the tray. So this gray color already looks so gorgeous and so pretty, but I thought of doing a little contrast on my border. So here I'm using my red acrylic paint. So I'm using the same plate. My chalk paints have almost dried out now, and it's safe to use my acrylic paint here. So I'm going to use that same paint on my borders. Use a round brush, not a very thick one. The thin one will be really good. If you want, you can dilute it with a bit of water, but I think my color was super creamy when I started using it. So here I am just going to do a nice border around my tray. I'm just using a contrast color. If you want to go ahead and continue with the green color, you're most welcome to do that. It's just that I wanted a little contrast on my borders, and I thought that this looks really, really, really catchy and very, very attractive and quirky DIY decor home tray. So I'm going to repeat this process on all around my tray. So once the border work is done and it has dried out a bit, and now it's time to do a lot of touch up. So you can see on these corners there are some white patches. That is because my napkin didn't stick really well, or there was some like my napkin was super thin. So I'm going to use the same acrylic color, and I'm going to highlight my pomegranate. I even felt later on that my napkin was a little lighter in shade, and I love pomegranate having the prominent red popping out color. So just using the same color to highlight my pomegranate, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. In person, this tray is looking so beautiful, and I absolutely loved it. So this way you can add a lot of colors to your project. You can highlight whichever sections you want to. And I did the same with my fruit in this one. So use your round brushes, and this is super relaxing technique to try out with your decoupage and your mixed media art. So I'm just highlighting a lot of portions here and there, and you can use different shades of reds and browns, and you can just play around with the colors in this project. Once this is done, it's time to play around with my massive stamp. So when I started, I thought I will be using a lot of contrast ones, maybe the floral one. I was a little confused, and finally I decided to use my script stamp. So here I'm going to use my permanent ink pads, my massive stamp, and I'm going to do the stamping work on my project. So here I am going to use my script stamp, and I'll make sure that I have them very neatly. I don't want to have too much dark shade of my black, so I'm using the gray color ink pad here. You can use any of the contrast colors too, but I thought because this is my tray colors are a little on a darker side, so I'm going to use a little gray, not to highlight that so much. So I'm going to repeat this process on the edge of my trays also. So I'm going to repeat this on the inner side and the outer side. Now, just while doing this video, I realized that my red color was too bright, the border one, so I wanted to dilute it. So here what I did was I used my same ink pad and I just gave a distress look to my tray. And just check out the pictures at the end, you will see how gorgeous these borders are looking. So my red is not prominent, I'm just using my permanent ink pad to highlight my borders, um, give it a little more shady effect, and this looks gorgeous. Now this is one of my favorite ways of using my ink pads. I do the same for my card making and my scrapbook making, and even for the coasters I use this technique a lot. So just brushing my ink pad on the borders, and wherever I see that the corners are highlighting, I'm just using it to smudge it with my base. So with this, the stamping work and the ink pad work is done, and now it's time to varnishes. This is really important. Do make sure that you use a big size flat brush and you have at least 3 to 4 coats of varnish. Now whenever you do varnish, you have to make sure that after each layer of varnish you let it dry for a day or two, and then you do the next coat. So usually when I'm doing my varnish work, I make sure that my trays are drying for at least 10 days. So one coat of varnish and then drying process for 2 days at least, and that's how I literally varnish my project. So varnish is really important. Do not miss out this step. If you like this video, do subscribe to my channel, hit the bell icon, and let me know your feedbacks in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to help. And do check out pictures at the end. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Take care and bye bye.